Hey everyone, it's Dalen McWilliams. I'm a career peer with Career Services, and I just wanted to hop on here today and talk to you all about building your resume. So, how important is a resume? Resumes are so important because it's the first thing an employer is going to get from you. You don't want to make a bad first impression or leave a bad taste in their mouth, so you want to make sure your resume is really nice, really clean, and professional. So typically, the average employer is only going to spend about 30 seconds looking on your resume. The first 20 seconds, they're going to scan your resume to see if you even fit what they're looking for. The next 10 seconds, they're going to decide if your resume goes in the trash or if it's going to go to the interview pile. So just a few basics about your resume. Typically, we tell students to keep your font between sizes 10 and 12. Your name's going to be bigger though because you want it to pop. It's going to be the biggest thing on the page. You don't want to use any fancy or crazy fonts. I typically tell students Arial, Times New Roman, Calibri. Those are all easy to read, and make sure you keep the font black. Resume paper is always a nice touch. So the goal is to have a consistent structure. You want to make sure your eyes just flow down the page and not jump around. So the format you want to have your resume in is chronological. So you're going to list the most recent to the least recent. You want to focus on your skills, so functional format is definitely important. And you're going to use bullet points to display your work experience. And you're going to use descriptive phrases that begin with action verbs. You also don't want to have any pictures, clip arts, borders, and you're going to make sure that it stays no longer than one page. So at the very top, you're going to have your name. It's going to be the biggest thing on your resume. It needs to pop. Not too big, but big enough to where they can look at it and remember your name, remember who you are. For your address, you're just going to put your city and state. You don't ever want to list your actual address because that causes a privacy issue. If you're putting your resume on like LinkedIn and Indeed and other websites like that, then that's just leaving your address out for anybody to come and find. I suggest listing your cell phone number because typically we all have our cell phones on us. They're easily accessible. You just want to make sure that you don't have any wild ringtones or anything that they would hear, or your voicemail, whenever they go to leave you voicemail, it's really professional and it's nothing crazy. Next, we need to talk about your email. Typically, I want to suggest to you to use your Troy email because it's going to be professional. It's not going to be anything crazy. But if for some reason you don't check your Troy email every day and you don't have access to it like you should use another email. Just make sure it's professional and nothing crazy like superflythundercat@hotmail.com. Just like maybe your name in at Gmail or at Hotmail or at Yahoo, whatever works best for you. So this is how it's going to look. Notice how the name's the biggest thing you see. So next, objective statements would go right underneath if you choose to have one. It's more of a preference thing. You don't have to have one. So it's just going to be a 1 to 3 sentence summary of what your interests are. Make sure you use complete sentences or descriptive phrases with minimal punctuation. There's no really in between, so it's either complete sentences or phrases. So you want to make sure you relate all your skills directly to what you're seeking. Don't be vague in this, be very descriptive, and make sure you tell them what you can do for the company. So you want to avoid generalized statements. And like I just said, avoid telling them what they can do for you. You want to make your statements very specific. So here's a good example. A communication specialist telling what they want, position at Tell Me More, in which I can utilize my strong communication, leadership, and planning skills. So you want to tailor these to be position specific by including the position title and the company, which is done here. Here's what it would look like. It never has to be anything super long. It's just all going to be up to your preference and what you can bring to the table. So next, right underneath that, if you choose to have that, if not, it would be the first thing on your resume, would be your education. So you want to start with your highest level of completion. Even if you haven't completed your bachelor's or master's, you're still going to put it on there. You never want to use high school unless it's relevant to the position you're trying to get. So you're going to have your degree first and then your graduation date. If you haven't graduated, it's going to say expected graduation date. Make sure whenever you put your school, you add the location. That's just really important just in case they're trying to track it down. Your GPA. So if you don't have above a 3.0, just leave it off your resume. Not that your GPA is not great, because I'm sure that it is, but just you don't want to count yourself out of a job before you even get it. So for some reason you have like a 2.7, that's not bad, right? So maybe you can get the interview and get in there and kind of explain why it's not a 3.0 versus them just looking at your resume in those 30 seconds and just being like, oh, not a 3.0, trash. So this is kind of what it would look like. And here's what it would actually look like. So next, underneath that, you're going to have your employment experience. With that, you're going to include positions that you've held that are related to the job that you're putting. So a lot of times to keep your resume one page, you'll have to kind of pick and choose what's most important. The best way to do that is every time you apply for a job, go back and tweak your resume. So maybe you're applying for a babysitting position and you've babysat a lot, but you've also worked at McDonald's, Burger King, Kohl's, like all these other places. Well, you need to go back and look at what's going to be most relevant to this specific position. Be creative with this section of your resume. Describe and emphasize your experiences in the most relevant way possible. So make sure you include information such as the name. So like if you work for Kohl's, you're clearly going to say Kohl's, the location of where it was at, what your job title was, the dates that you worked there, and the duties that you performed. Whenever you're talking about the duties, make sure you talk about them like in the correct tense. So if it's something you did, if it's something you're doing currently, you're going to use present tense in your verbs. If it's something you've done in the past, you're going to use past tense. Make sure you list all of this stuff in the most recent order of occurrence. So if it's a job you currently have right now, it's going to be first. The job that you had before this current job is going to be next. You want to make sure that this section is really easy to read, and you're going to make that easy to read by using spacing and bullets. So like I was saying, use action phrases to highlight the duties you have performed. If it is a past job, use past tense. This is what it's going to look like. So this person was a hospitality intern, and they oversaw the planning, production, preparations, and prompt delivery of food. So it's not a job that they currently have, but it's a job that they had. So a lot of times we know that if you're a college athlete, you know, your sport is your job. So you wouldn't have a lot of work experience, so you could just put intercollegiate athletics. So with this, you're going to include your athletic participation in this section. So talk about the sport, the years played, your accomplishments, the time devoted to training, and your academic honors and awards. If you received an athletic scholarship, you may choose to include that as one of your accomplishments. So people understand that, you know, college athletes, this is your work. So your coaches and everything would be able to attest to that. They'd be like your boss. So make sure you still use action words to describe the skills that you've gained from participating in collegiate athletics. So if you've learned time management, communication skills, great leadership skills, all of that, you want to show that throughout the section. So this is what it would look like. Yeah, so we can see that they received a partial scholarship. That's really good. They devoted 20 hours a week to athletics. All of that's good stuff. So a lot of times employers like to see that students, especially college students, they have good time management skills. And a really good way to show this is by being involved on campus. So that's where your activities and leadership section would come in. So you're going to include relevant activities that you could discuss with your prospective employer. So whenever you go into interviews, they actually do ask you about this because they like to see that, okay, they keep themselves busy, they can handle a lot. So this is what it would look like. Even if you weren't the president of something, if you were just a member, it's still good to add because you're still just as important, just as involved. So if you have any honors, that's also important, and you can definitely make a section for that. You can include honors that relate to your academic or work experience. So this is where this would go. That's why it's important to work really hard. Make sure you can have honors, but if you don't, it's not a big deal. You can make your sections tailored to you. You can have a community service section, just a bunch of different things. Yeah. So here are some of the other categories. So volunteer experience, military experience, language proficiencies, certifications and trainings, and your relevant coursework. So really, you just want to make sure that your resume is one full page. You don't want to have a half a page because it kind of leaves question marks in the employer's head. So just try to fill it up. Make sure you're involved in things and you're really getting out there and getting yourself some good experience. So let's talk about references. So whenever you're getting ready to make your reference list, you don't want to include the names and addresses of your references on your resumes. You want that to be a separate sheet. Choose professional references rather than character references. So your employers, your professors, people like that are going to be professional. Your parents and your friends only know you as a parent and a friend. They can't speak to your actual work ethic. They can speak to your character. So you have to be able to differentiate between the two. So you want to make sure whoever you list on your reference page, they know that they're a reference. So you can send them a copy of your resume. So the employer calls and they're like, hey, I see that they're involved in this, this, and this. They can kind of go along with it and speak to it. You want to give them a heads up for what positions you're applying for, just so they're not blindsided. So if they do receive a call, you're going to include the same heading from your resume. You're just going to copy and paste it over. This is what it would look like. So your professors and bosses and all that, they're not going to give you their actual address. So if you don't have it, you can use their place of employment. And if you can't find that, that's fine too. You can just leave it off. But just make sure you leave a good cell phone number and an email and their position title. So next, let's talk a little bit about a cover letter. So a cover letter is going to tell the employer the type of position you're seeking and exactly how you're qualified for the position. Your cover letter is going to be in business format, and it's going to include your address and theirs, a good date, address a specific person. So to whom it may concern, that's okay. But if you know the hiring manager, whoever you're going to be interviewing with, that's more personable. It seems more intentional. It seems like you really did your research on the company and you want the job. So you want to keep it between 3 to 4 paragraphs, no more than 1 page. Make sure you're specific and don't just make claims. So here's kind of like a formula for your cover letter. So in the first paragraph, you're going to talk about why you're writing. You need to have a good attention grabber that's going to make them want to read about you and what you have to offer. In your second paragraph, you're going to talk about your qualifications. In your third paragraph, you're going to relate yourself to the company, giving details why you should be considered for the position. And in your fourth paragraph, that's going to be your closing statement, where you're basically asking them for an interview. And make sure if you're going to mail this in, you always do a handwritten signature. So here are some things you don't want to do. You don't want to send a cover letter with grammatical mistakes. So we have the Writing Center. They're really great. They can proofread. You can bring it into us and we can look at it. Don't use sexist greetings. So don't say gentlemen. A woman might be reading it. Tell the employer what they can do for you rather than what you can do for them. So the whole point of the cover letter is to showcase your talents and your strengths and why they should hire you. So don't ask them for anything. Rehash your resume. They already have a copy of that, so it wouldn't be important to go back over those details. You also don't want to send a generic cover letter without the position in the company listed, because they're going to know you didn't put any time or effort into it. You don't want to forget to remove previous company information. That's just going to count you out right there for sure. And you don't want to tell your whole life story. So you know, it's personal, but it's not personal to where you need to tell where you were born, how you were raised, all that. It's still very professional. So thank you guys for watching. You can find us. Sorry about that. Basically, we're getting to the end of the video, and I just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. This is some of our old information, but we still do have all these events that should be coming up again in the fall. We have a career closet that's really good where people come and donate clothes, a lot of new clothes, professional clothes, good stuff you're going to need for interviews. So make sure you guys be on the lookout for that. We also have a suit up event where we partner up with JCPenney's in Montgomery, and you can come out and find you some good professional clothes on sale. Stay on the lookout for our career fairs and all that good stuff when we come back in the fall. Before we go, I want to talk about the difference between business casual and business professional. So for ladies and men, business professional is always going to be a suit, whether that's a blazer and a skirt for you ladies or pants. Men, it's going to be a suit jacket and pants all the way. Business casual is going to be like slacks and khakis and a nice shirt. So just make sure you know the difference. Whenever you go in for an interview, you definitely want to dress business professional. I always say dress for the job you want. So really put your best foot forward. Make sure you guys are on Handshake. That's where a lot of the job postings and internships are. Follow us on follow us at Troy U Career on Instagram and Twitter for updates. That's another place where we post a lot. So yeah, just stay connected. Well, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.